produce? These are all very common questions that get asked, and so you know, we can start at the beginning and kind of go through it if you guys want to, or I can answer questions that you have. How would you like to proceed?
I think we should probably do some questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do some questions. Anybody got a question about solar? Yeah.
So, what is the difference in putting it on the roof as opposed to the grant?
That's a great question. Yeah. So,
can you repeat it? Because not everyone
yeah. So the question was, what's the difference between putting the solar panels on the roof versus putting them on the ground? And the answer is, you know, really cost is what the difference is. Because when you install a solar array on the ground, you have to install a support structure to mount the solar panels to so that they won't blow away and stuff like that. And then typically you have to have the electricity from the solar panels get back to the building, so there's underground electrical work that's got to be done. And so rooftop solar is generally a little bit less expensive because you don't have to build that structure. It's already there. All we have to do is attach the solar panels to the existing structure. And so rooftop solar is generally less expensive you know, to install than ground mount. But there are certainly cases where, you know, it's not appropriate to install on a roof because there's maybe too much shade, or, you know, it's an older roof, or there's something structural. Yeah, right?
Imagine if you had a south-facing, enormous, slanted toward the south face of a rooftop structure already in place that isn't tree covered.
That's right.
Just now imagine that. You've got it right here. I mean, this is, I'm just looking at this. You wouldn't even use all of this. This
Probably
is
not.
an enormous south-facing rooftop.
Yeah.
Do you help with the process of dealing with FPL?
Absolutely, yes. FPL is a wonderful company. Did I say that? No. They are not particularly in favor of folks adopting solar themselves. They would much prefer that you just let them do it. And so there is a kind of formal process that you have to go through that's called interconnection. And you know, when you do the interconnection agreement with FPL, you do enter into a different kind of, you know, legal arrangement with FPL because you are sending electricity back to the grid. You know, there are some insurance requirements that need to be considered when you do that. Depending on the size of the system that you're installing, there's different tiers of interconnections that occur. And so, you know, the church would be certainly what we call like a tier 2 type of an interconnection, but a lot of residential systems are tier 1 and they don't have that insurance requirement. But generally speaking, you're going to have, as the church already probably does, you're going to have the insurance coverage that you need already. And so we facilitate all of the paperwork and the whole process with inspections and engineering and all that kind of stuff to make sure that that process is being done correctly and successful. So.
Do they have certain limitations that, you know, they have so much solar power?
Great question. Yes. So FPL. Oh yeah. Are there certain limitations to the amount of solar that you can put on a building? And the answer is twofold. First off, FPL generally will only allow you to install a system that produces up to 115% of your annual consumption for the prior 12 months. So one of the things that we do is we look at your last 12 months of electric bills, and we can size the solar array to offset up to 115%. Now, most people don't necessarily need to do 115%. They'll do 100%, but they say, well, I might be getting an EV next year, or we're adding some new air conditioning units, or we're adding a new building, you know, whatever. And so in some cases, folks say, I want to go above 100%. But usually that's not necessary.
Don't do that.
The second constraint, as Rabbi Glickman mentioned, is certain types of transformers have limitations. And this is one of the things we're going to go do after this meeting, is go take a look at your actual electrical systems. And some of the older transformers that are still in service are limited. And so those limitations can kind of impact the amount of solar that you can put on a building. And that limit is for what we call single phase services is 50 kilowatts of AC power, which translates to about 58 kilowatts of actual solar on the roof. That's a lot, and that's actually what the temple has. We went right up to that limit. But those are the two limitations. So.
Gentlemen, I do have a question over here.
Thank you. Actually, I have two questions. One is about the grid and storage, and the other one, I guess, is about hurricanes. I know that you said that the panels survived the hurricane we had. I lived in a community in the Caribbean where we got into solar power. We had a solar farm installed, and my bill went from like 50 cents a kilowatt hour to 30 cents a kilowatt hour. But in Irma and Maria, the whole solar farm blew away. So they were right back to where they started. And I know you can't guarantee that, but I'm wondering if there is an insurance policy or something that would cover the loss of these in a major hurricane. And the second question is about the grid. You're not completely off the grid, so you don't store it all in batteries, right?
Correct. Yeah. So let's.
Why don't I do the second one? You do the.
Okay, I'll do the hurricane one. So that is an excellent point about the hurricane question, and that goes back to selecting the contractor that you were using to actually install the system. I can personally tell you that we had about 200 systems go through Hurricane Ian, and out of those 200 systems, we had less than 20 solar panels that got damaged. And that's in the most extreme conditions. And yeah, we had systems in Port Charlotte, down in Pine Island, that experienced extreme conditions. And like I said, we had about 20, 30 solar panels that actually got damaged out of, I'm not sure how many thousand, that we've installed over the years. The key to a successful, survival of a storm is to design, engineer, install, and inspect the system to ensure that you're doing it to meet the wind code at the location. And that means that you need to pick a good quality contractor that's conscientious about doing it right the first time. And, that's something that my mom and dad told me when I was a kid. They said, look, Bill, in life you have a choice. You can either do it right or you can do it twice. And we live by that literally every single day. The engineering that is out there today is fully capable of withstanding the most extreme windstorms. Now, I will say, debris is a different situation. If a tree limb or a roof tile or something like that hits a solar panel, it's going to probably break the solar panel. But I will also say that generally speaking, if it's a strong enough, hit to damage the solar panel, it probably would have done more damage to your actual roof system. And so that's an important thing to understand. These solar panels are very tough. They're designed to withstand a 1-inch hailstone traveling at 60 miles an hour, which would.
Ow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a major hit, right? That's almost as bad as a golf ball. And so they are very strong. They are fully designed to meet the wind codes. And like I said, we've got dozens of systems in the community, hundreds of systems in the community that had literally no damage from the storm. So And then batteries.
Yeah, so battery and storage is the next horizon. I want to address that for a minute, but really to say that should not be the focus on battery storage. So batteries are, thanks to Tesla and others, are becoming much less costly and storing much more, like every year, every month. That's on the horizon. And I believe in the future, we are all going to have not only our solar power, but we're all going to have batteries in our house, because it just makes sense. You want that for when there's a power outage. You still want your, you know, your fridge and your phone charge or whatever. Or maybe you just, right now, it's still, that's like a luxury item. That's like, if you're like, just because it's something you want, you can have it. And Bill has done installations for people who like want to be off grid. They want, and he'll do it. That's a big check. And that I would say is at this moment still, is a dream luxury item. Our temple is going to be looking into it to try to save on that surge bill, but I wouldn't recommend you focus on battery yet, because you can always wait 5 years later and put in batteries. And I think we all will eventually, but I wouldn't recommend focusing on storage. Yeah, we out of our time?
I think we should let these folks go.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. That wonderful presentation.
Yay, all right.
If anybody has any more questions, we're happy to stick around and answer.
Hi.